Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Cutting Edge. Tonight, Larry is going to have a roundtable with Augusto Perez and Daniel Holdings, and I'm sure it's going to be quite intriguing. Welcome to the broadcast, Larry.
Thank you, Dorothy. I appreciate you so much, and your radio network. It reaches out, and I do appreciate it. And greetings, everyone. This is Larry Taylor. And I haven't had a show for a little while, but we've decided to have a little roundtable and some very interesting discussion. And we might pull a little information in that we had on Augusto's mailbag show last night. I've got with me today Augusto Perez and also Daniel Holdings. And I think we can really come up with some intriguing information. Greetings, guys. Augusto, so glad you could make it tonight.
I'm glad to be here, Larry, and I'm glad I can talk to you again, Daniel.
Well, thank you, Augusto. Larry, thank you so much for having me on, guys. It's been a long time, and I so much appreciate being able to sit around this here virtual table with you guys and talk about the things that are going on in the world.
Well, that's certainly what we'll do, Daniel, and so glad to have you. You know, I was thinking, of course, both of y'all are talk show hosts. And I thought, wouldn't that be interesting to have a roundtable that I host with other talk show hosts? And I was thinking it would either be totally chaotic or, on the other hand, it would be extremely interesting. And I'm leaning toward the interesting part. But I'm really sincere tonight to discuss, and I know, Augusto, you've been on the show for the last few hours or so, or maybe, and you know, lean back in your chair and have a sip of tea and take your time and join in anytime you want to and how you want to. And, Daniel, I know you've actually got a show tonight, and I do want to talk about that because, as a matter of fact, I think I'll start with you, Daniel, if you don't mind. You've got a brand-new show. It's not really brand new, but it may be to a lot of people that listen to this one on I guess you could say HebrewNationOnline.com is the actual website, but you're doing a show called Prepare the Way, and it is new. The concept is new, and it's very intriguing. Matter of fact, I listened to the one you did with the Hagmans last week, and it was really good, and I know you've got one pre-recorded now tonight with L.A. Marzulli, and I'll probably download that tomorrow and listen because that is really, really good. Tell me, Daniel, describe to us what you're doing. We all know you recently moved. We all, I guess you made an exodus from California, probably at a good time. But, and you've started another radio show that you're doing presently, and if you're writing any books right now, I'm not aware of that. Fill us in on where you are right now.
Well, Larry, thank you for mentioning this show. You know, I kind of feel a little schizophrenic tonight, as you said. I am beside myself because I'm in competition with myself tonight. I'm here on Blog Talk Radio with you all, and Prepare the Way airs on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 5 o'clock p.m. Western Time, and it is pre-recorded this week, and as such, I can be here with you guys, so it's a great thing. Yeah, and LA was kind enough to be on with me this week, and we've all heard LA often, but the format of Prepare the Way, and honestly, guys, it's not very different than what you all do, than what we have all done in the past. And Dorothy, I know you're listening. I so much appreciate you giving me my start in talk radio. You know, the Cutting Edge is Dorothy's show, and I haven't. By the way, Dorothy, I haven't got back to you. I didn't do away with it altogether. I'll do another one. I promise. I'm over my head at the moment with stuff going on. But Hebrew Nation Radio is actually a radio station out of Salem, Oregon. They have a market of about 20,000 people, and then what they do is they stream those shows online throughout the world so that they're able to get a much larger audience base. And it was an opportunity that the Lord opened up. I'd been a a guest on a couple different shows with one couple ladies in particular, a couple of she-brews is what it's called, and the station manager approached me and asked me if I was interested to do a show, and it was something different, and there were a lot of new things going on in my life, so I thought it might be a good opportunity. I prayed about it, and we ended up starting a show. And Dorothy, I miss you because I produced that show pretty much myself, so I don't have any help doing this. And in addition to that, a mutual friend of ours, Larry, Jerry Tomlinson and Rhonda Tomlinson of Prodigal Ministries International, also started a show at the same time called What Does the Word Say? And I actually produced that show for them, and I met a guest from time to time. But between radio and the other kind of things that I do on the website and what writing I get done and whatever physical labor I'm doing these days, my days are full. My hours are full. I'm telling you.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And a matter of fact, I've been having so much news overflow every day that I've been having a hard time following you almost. But I've kept up with you pretty good. Daniel, do you have any writing going on right now, or you kind of got that setting in the wings a little bit?
Well, Larry, I have a couple books started. I haven't, I joked that I was going to write a book, and I've actually started it. I'm not anywhere near finished, but the title of the book is Mad Scientists and Other Wackadoos. That's the working title I have, and it one of the things that really was the impetus for that idea is, and that's a nonfiction book. That's a real storyline. I mean, a real book, not a novel like I'm normally writing. The basis for that was a lot of different things. It talks about transhumanism. It talks about physics. It talks about stuff like that, scientific stuff. It talks about earth changes that are brought on by global engineering or geoengineering. So it takes into consideration a lot of things that mankind is trying to do. And Augusto, it really occurs to me that sounds like the days of Noah, when they thought, with the help of the fallen angels and the Nephilim, that they thought that they could shape their own world any old way they could, and whatever God thought didn't matter.
Well, I sure have been seeing a lot of chemtrailing lately, and one of the purposes for that is it's actually terraforming the Earth. And I don't really know what is the ultimate vision these people have for the Earth, but whatever it is, it's not good. They want to bring the population down to 500 million, and so like today I went walking, and as I walk, I usually like to look around, and I looked at the sun, and it was covered with chemtrailing, and everywhere else is fine, but right around the sun, a lot of chemtrailing, and I just was talking to myself, I said, there they go again now. So, yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and, the Bible talks about the days of Noah, and, and the wickedness. The Bible says the man's wickedness was exceedingly, bountiful, and continually man was thinking on evil, and when I read about that, I said that describes the time we are in. I've never seen such evil. I mean, children shooting teachers. I'm reading about that today. I read about children being taught in the schools about homosexuality, as a lifestyle, and about the Muslim faith. I mean, what is going on? It's crazy, really. If I didn't have the Lord, I don't know. I would probably go crazy.
Oh, I'll tell you what.
I don't even know how people without a biblical framework can think about these things. Because we have a basis, a foundation by which everything else we look at is, should I say, translated, or how everything else that we look at is filtered. And that's the Bible. But if you don't know the Lord and you see these things going on around you, and guys, the funny thing is, on my website, I'm uploading a bunch of old shows to my website, and I kind of reformatted it and put podcasts on it. So on my website, I'm putting some of the oldest shows that we have done, that I have done, and that I've been on with you guys as well. One of those shows that we did was from Kurtner and Kerr back in mid-2012. That was before all of the stuff went on during 2012. And as because I was cutting out the commercials and stuff, so as I listened back to it, you guys, when I think about what life was like before 2012, and everybody said that December 25th, nothing happened. You guys are a bunch of alarmists. But when you look back at the state of the world today and the evil and the craziness that's going on today, it started then. In fact, the show that I was listening to was just after Obama's second term, just after he was elected to the second term. And if you look at the rate that things have degraded since then, Larry, it is mind-boggling.
Oh my! I mean, you're exactly right, and that's what's so interesting is the fact that it seems that a lot of people expected the sky to fall at the end of 2012, and in December. But that's one thing that people that really kind of shy away from reading the scriptures that much. One of the things that I have really noted and understood and really appreciate so much, and I'll tell you where I first picked up on it was when I was studying some of the Bible codes or Torah codes. Originally they called them Bible codes, and then they began to use, of course, they're using the Torah, but then they began to call them Torah codes, and I picked up in that a word that kept popping up in some of the codes that, everybody would read the words, and they would just skip right over that one like it really didn't even exist. And that was the term that kept showing up called delay, D-E-L-A-Y, the term delay. And that's when I began to really, really watch. And, when I would have somebody, check a Torah code for me or whatever, I would usually I would send them a list of words, Daniel, like I did with Barry Rothman with your book. I sent him a list of terms to look for. And, of course, I didn't use delay in that one. And he found quite a bit. Matter of fact, it was astonishing. And, but I began to see that. And then, Augusto had me on his mailbag show last night. And we both, Augusto really brought it up first. He said, it's kind of like we've still got a pause or there's kind of a window still open or whatever. And I shared with him that I also was feeling that, that somehow we'd been given a little more time maybe, because all this stuff seems like it's been collapsing. It's almost like the sky's been falling in slow motion, and, there's been a spatter hit the ground here and one way over there, but they're scattered and you can't put them all together and make the picture you want to read. Of course, if the whole sky collapsed and crashed at one time, you wouldn't probably have to worry about the picture. But, Augusto, give me your opinion on that, because you came up with it first, that there seemed to be a little pause here in what's going on.
Well, I believe that there is a delay, a divine delay, and we have been in this mode for a while. I truly feel like it has a lot to do with the prayers of the saints. The prayers of the saints have been very strong. There have been a lot of prayer going on, and the intercessors are really, really doing a great job. And I truly, have asked the Lord to give us a little more time, because people are not ready. But the things that are beginning to happen are very, very startling, to say the least. And we touched lightly last night on the jade helm and what it could mean, and I shared a bit about the fact that I don't agree with most of the commentators out there, the watchmen and the preachers and the teachers, whatever. What they're sharing that what is going on with Jade Helm. I have always held to the firm belief that this thing is really got a lot to do with the approach of Planet X, and of course we know this object has been incoming for a long time. They've been talking about this object since the 90s, actually since the 80s, but a lot of people started really paying attention to it in the 90s, and Blindsided, that book that came out, and then many other people started posting photos and videos and so forth, and it has been intensifying, and all these exercises taking place. I am finding out these exercises are not just here taking place here in the U.S., but everywhere. They're taking place in England, they're taking place in Canada, they're taking place in Japan, as well as the Walmart closings. And we thought at first that this was kind of a United States phenomena, but it's not. It is not, and so that leads me to believe that this thing really is not about the United States, only. This thing is about something approaching that is going to shake every nation on this planet, and I believe that has something to do with with the Planet X. I don't subscribe to the idea that it is a World War III, because World War III. Canada really, it's not into that kind of stuff. And there's some of these other countries. Japan is not really a very powerful military power in the world, and yet these things are happening there as well. So what is going on that, what else could be? What else could it be? It could be the economy. It could be the economic crash. People are going to go crazy, go to the streets. That could be. However, I still think that this has everything to do with the approach of Planet X, and so many weird stuff going on. The fishes continue to die by the millions. The whales, the dolphins are just crashing on the beaches. This has never happened before in such large numbers. Birds falling from the air. And so I believe that many of these things have to do with the ocean floor opening up, cracks appearing, which has been reported a lot for years now, and it's intensifying, and methane gas being released along with other gases, and this is causing a mass kill of fish and all kinds of things. And there is a very strange phenomena. There has been holes appearing on the world. In China recently appeared a hole about 3 feet in diameter that with fire coming from deep within the earth, and this kind of stuff has not happened before. I think it was last year we saw holes begin to appear, small diameter holes in Russia, and a lot of people started wondering what that was all about. Now this thing in China with a hole 3 feet in diameter with fire coming from deep within the earth, this is beginning to smell like Nibiru, like Planet X, like the destroyer is making its approach. And, I don't know where it is, and I'm not going to make a prediction when it will come pass by, but we're seeing a lot of these meteors passing close to the earth, missing the earth by not much. We are seeing the sun just erupt in solar flares like never before. There's a lot of strange things going on. California is about to run out of water in about a year or so, and so we're going to see a mass exodus from that country, and you kind of got a head start on it, Daniel, but we're going to see a mass exodus from that part of the country, because if the people can't have water to drink. You cannot survive without water. You cannot plant. You can't do anything without water. You cannot. The farms cannot operate. So, and then on top of that, you add the Fukushima nuclear, contamination coming in the sea, from the sea in the water, and also in the air. And that kind of presents a very very dire scenario for the West Coast, and and then you have this Jade Helm doing all these exercises on the East Coast. That smells like something. They're expecting something to hit soon, and I have every reason to believe that it is somehow related to this object, whatever people want to call it, Planet X, a brown dwarf, destroyer, Nibiru, whatever. It is an object. It's coming in fast, and I just, I do thank the Lord for the delay, Larry. I do thank God for the delay, because there's still a lot of people that are not saved, a lot of people that are asleep, and they just don't have any understanding about any of these things. And when it happens, a lot of people are going to die from panic, and they're going to die. They're going to have heart attacks from the things that they're going to see coming upon the earth, just like Jesus Christ, the Messiah, said.
Well, I'll tell you what, Augusto, you're exactly right. Matter of fact, I'm looking in the chat room now, and somebody said people are going mad, and that's what you're pretty much describing. And while we're into that, and before I get too long and forget it, let me ask you to do something, to just stop right here, and Augusto, and I want you to explain to the people, you've just started a brand new, because you're talking about the lost, and you're talking about those that may have left the Lord, and you're talking about those that maybe he's called a long time, and they've been staying away and not heeding the call, and a lot of them are miserable. A lot of them are literally on the, and listen, I'm listening to prayer requests, in the mailbag show, and there's a whole lot of people in a whole lot of pain that are literally on the edge of just about going mad or committing suicide, that still have a call in their life. And you just started a brand new teaching series called Piercing the Veil. Why don't we just take a minute here, Augusto, and explain why you did that, and what is the purpose, and where are you going with this new teaching series? I've heard the first two. They're really, really good, and I'm looking forward to all the rest of them, but just take some time and explain that and say whatever you want to.
Well, actually, it started, when we were winding down on the previous teaching series, which was the Melchizedek priesthood. I was asking the Lord, what do you want to teach now? What do you want me to teach? What is it that is the most important thing on your heart? And that is when I had that experience with the darkness, the gross darkness, that I shared and I posted on the website, where I began to see the darkness descend. This is the first time I have ever actually seen it like this. I actually saw it, and the spirits of the people began to really dim. It began to really wane, and I became afraid. Really, honestly, I became afraid, because I could see the lights in the people. There were no other lights. No other lights could be seen. The sun was gone. The moon was gone. The stars were gone. Everything was gone. There was no lights in the streets. No, nothing. The only light I could see was the lights within the people, the life lights, if you will, that spiritual lights that is life given inside of us. I could see that in the people, and as I was watching this thing happen, the lights of the people began to get very weak, and began to kind of dim and began to flicker. And I was really concerned then, and I just let out a shout to the people and said, "Hold hands now, and let's pray. Hold hands now." And we held hands, and we began to pray, which speaks of unity. It speaks of being disciplined, of being in unity in prayer. And we began to pray, we began to worship God, and we began to sing unto the Lord. And this caused our lights to begin to grow stronger. And as our lights grew stronger, the darkness began to just moved back, and eventually it disappeared the same way it came. Suddenly, and out of nowhere, it just went away. Then after that vision, the vision changed, and we were building our foundations. I saw all of us working like in carpentry and in masonry, building our foundation, or a better word is strengthening our foundations. And I woke up from that experience, and I realized the message he was saying, that this thing is actually very, 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 it's closing in very fast, and we need to grow stronger in the Lord. We need to build our foundations, strengthen our foundations. And so this is when I began to get an idea that the Lord wanted us to focus on prayer, because a lot of Christians don't have a prayer closet. They don't have a prayer relationship with the Lord. And so I got 2 emails from 2 of my spiritual sons at different times. They don't know each other. They didn't know that this was going on, and they wrote me basically along the same lines that the imminent need of the hour was prayer. And I say, okay, that is the confirmation from the Lord right there. So we started this teaching series on prayer, and we called it Piercing the Veil, because we need to go beyond. We need to go beyond anything we've done before. We just don't need to just say a little prayer. We need to really pierce the veil. We need to go into the holiest of holies, into the very throne of God. And we're going to need this in this end time. And so, in the Old Testament, we know about the tabernacle. The tabernacle was divided into 3 parts: the outer court, the holy place, and the holy of holies. The outer court, the entrance to the outer court was referred to by the Jewish people as the way, okay? And then when you kept going, you came to the holy place, which was the room that had the table of showbread, the golden candlestick, and the altar of incense. The entrance to that place was called the truth. And then inside there, as right in front of the altar of incense, which was where the priest would stand after he ate the table of showbread, of the unleavened bread sprinkled with frankincense, it was bitter, and then lit the candle, the golden candlestick that had oil running through every part of it. Then he went to the altar of incense, and there he began to offer unto the Lord worship and prayers. Okay? And then smoke, he began to burn incense. Smoke began to fill the room. And when the whole room was filled with smoke, which literally stands for and symbolizes the prayers and the worship of his saints, okay? The high priest, when that room was filled with smoke, he then pushed his way through the veil, which is what it was called. That curtain was 4 inches thick. And we talked about this, Larry, about your vision of the door closing, and it was 4 inches. You saw the doors 4 inches before it closed. That veil was 4 inches thick, and the high priest would do this once a year. He would push his way, he would pierce that veil into the very presence of God, the Holy of Holies, where the presence of God, the Shekinah, the mercy seat was, and that where the 2 cherubims with their wings overextended over the mercy seat, where he placed the blood of the Lamb, okay? So I call this series the Piercing the Veil, because this is exactly what we're going to need to do. We're going to need to pierce that veil, okay, with a lot of prayer and with a lot of intercession and with a lot of worship. And this is this again has to do with the tabernacle of David. The tabernacle of David. We talked about that on the Melchizedek priesthood. So this is the teaching series we're doing now on Piercing the Veil, is to bring the people of God to that place where they are able themselves to pierce the veil, to be able to get into the throne room and to really be able to receive that impartation from the very presence of God that we are going to need so desperately in this end time. So, in a nutshell, that is what we're doing on Thursday nights now on that teaching series on Piercing the Veil. And praise God. I think there's a lot more to cover. I don't know how many lessons we're going to do, but there's a lot of material there to cover.
Wow, that is a big nutshell. And I'll tell people that's listening, if you haven't been keeping up with Augusto's teaching series, you need to. It is really, really good, and it actually opens up. It's almost like Augusto when you're teaching. Even though I've read the Bible numerous times, and I've read a lot of what you're teaching, but it's like things open up or flower, that like a flower would open up maybe sometimes when you're reading it, in the teaching, it becomes more visible to you than when you're just reading it, and I appreciate it. Wow. What do you think, Daniel? Did we lose Daniel?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I think it's an awesome thing that you're doing, Augusto, and I'm reminded as I was listening to you, and people forget this fact that when we talk about the Holy of Holies and the Ark of the Covenant, we need to remember that was in Solomon's temple. That when the veil was torn and the high priest went into the Holy of Holies once a year for Herod's temple, it was the second temple, it was empty except for the lampstand. It was empty. And when Yeshua when he died and the veil was tore, I don't know, when I think about this, it's almost like not only is God making a way directly to him through the blood of the Lamb, through the blood of Yeshua, but he's also showing what, just man-made religion is. It's empty without his presence. And if you recall, it was about, I want to say it was in 57 AD or something like that, when they actually saw the Spirit of God leave the temple. And that's when they wrote Ichabod over the door and all this other stuff. But, it's so interesting, Augusto, that the Holy Spirit has brought this back to you, because in these days, when His Holy Spirit's supposed to live inside of us, in the face of the danger and the things that are coming upon the earth, He's having you say, look, it's through the veil. It's through the veil directly to me. And you're absolutely right. We are going to need that via prayer and praise like never before.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, Daniel, in your writings, you actually, in your last book, you actually, had Bryce Cooper enter the a set-up version of the Holy of Holies, and actually, I guess you could say he pierced the veil because, boy, he left out. and let me ask you, what really brought about you writing that portion? Was there something that gave you that direction? I'm sure the Holy Spirit did, but that was so interesting how you put that in the book.
Well, Larry, oftentimes what I do, and it was really interesting hearing you, Augusto, go through the things that are going on when you were talking about Planet X or Nibiru. By the way, I did have Gil Broussard on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about the incoming object. He says that we're going to see it next Passover. We'll see it just before that. For what it's worth. I mean, I don't know. That's what he says. But as I look at the news that's going on a regular basis, and I read this stuff, and I try to synthesize, Larry, all of this stuff that is going on and try to make sense of it, and of course put it in a story where people can read it and maybe not get scared exactly, but at least be intrigued enough to do some research on their own. I always have to think about, okay, that's what's going on in our neck of the woods. That's what's going on in our 3D universe. But what's going on in a bigger picture? What's going on in the supernatural that's around us? And we call it the supernatural, meaning that it exceeds the natural, right? That it's bigger than the natural. You've heard me talk about this many times about the fact that we live in a 3D universe or a 4D universe if you count time, like Einstein said. But there's a much larger world around us. We call that the supernatural, but it is in fact other dimensions that angels and demons and that where they live in and they roam about. And God, of course, lives outside of the supernatural because He created it. He made everything, and so therefore He can stand within creation, but He also can stand without creation. So as I look at and I try to synthesize all the wacky news that I come across, what I try to do on any given in any given book is I try to say, okay, wait a minute, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the earthquakes. I'm seeing the solar flares. I'm seeing Planet X. I'm seeing UFOs. Whatever it is that I'm writing about. What is God seeing? And how do we see what God sees? And Larry, that's really how, in any of my books, when you see Bryce Cooper or anybody else experiencing the supernatural, it's my goal in talking about those things, in helping the reader to understand that the world is bigger than what we see. We get caught up in the global collapse or Planet X or this or that. The universe is bigger than our own 3D universe, and so that's where it comes from.
Not only that, Daniel, what's so interesting, and one of the reasons why I enjoyed every single one of your books, you've got a trilogy out there, and if people haven't read your books, they really need to start enjoying them. I mean, they are good, and I'm not just talking about enjoy because you like to read. I'm talking about reading something that literally, even though it's fiction, and that's what's interesting, Daniel, is one time I heard somebody say, fiction really is things that haven't been proved yet, maybe. So we can get far out there. But I'll tell you what I like about it. In your the third book of the trilogy, Larry Taylor actually got to meet Bryce Cooper, and I enjoyed every moment of that. I want you to know.
Well, audience, for those of you that don't know it, Larry Taylor is a character in my last novel, my most recent novel, that is. Hopefully it's not my last novel. But I enjoyed writing it, Larry, because as I stood there, sizing each other up, and you know what part I'm talking about, when he first meets him and you're trying to figure out, are you for real or are you a vision? I can see you doing that. I mean, I really can. It was just as fun to write as it was to read it, I bet.
Well, I'll tell you what, and all kidding aside, even though I did enjoy meeting Bryce. Matter of fact, enjoyed meeting you actually not too long back. But all kidding aside, and Augusto, this is what's interesting when people write, and especially like Daniel has to write, and of course you write. You've got your own books, and Smile Jesus Loves You. That's one of my favorites, and because I think really because I love prophecy, visions and dreams, etc. And you've got a number of yours in that book. Matter of fact, you've had a number since then. You're probably going to have to do an update. But what is so interesting is how Daniel synthesizes, I guess you could say, our 3D world and what he's trying to describe in his books, along with everything that we can't see, in other words, the unseen, that is created by someone that's not a man. And, I've said that on your show, Augusto. God is not a man. And
no.
we lose that. Sometimes we just lose that. We lose the grasp that he's not a man. And the one that even wrote our book, through the human, or the Adamic relationship, he's just not a man. And I don't know, Augusto, it's like we get away from that so easily.
Well, I think someone preached a message on this many, many, many years ago, and I can't remember who it was or when, but I read it, and it's always stayed with me all these years. And I think the title of the message, it was a kind of an old-fashioned message, but it was very, very powerful. And the title of the message was the teacher goes back to school. And it had to do with the Creator. The Creator, came to earth in the form of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Before he came to earth, he, like you said, he was not a man. He was an entity. He was the Elohim, the creator of all things, the eternal one, but he was not a man. But when he came in the form of a man, I believe for the first time, he realized things that maybe he never had realized before. And I believe that there's a lot there that people just don't understand. And, when Jesus Christ came, there was like a paradigm shift in everything. And, many times he said things that, it just baffles the mind. He said, "You have heard say, but I say unto you. But I now say unto you." You have heard say, but I now say unto you. And we see a greater emphasis when the Messiah came on love and mercy and grace. And of course, the Lord, the Almighty One has always been a God of mercy and grace, always has. But after the crucifixion, after the Messiah, came to planet Earth, we see a greater emphasis on mercy and compassion and grace. And I don't know, because the Lord hasn't told me this. I guess when we cross the Jordan, we'll find out. But I guess he has something to do with the fact that the Creator, the Almighty One, the Eternal One, for the first time ever came in human flesh and partook of human flesh. And for the first time, he was able to experience things on this side of the veil, on this side of the veil of the reality, on this reality. And we have no idea the multiple realities. Eternity, really, when you think about it, Larry and Daniel, there's no time. It's timeless. This concept of time is basically an earth thing. It's for us, for the second heaven and the first heaven. And the third heaven that Paul refers to is timeless. It's multidimensional, and so we really have no idea what it's all about. Once you get into that area and that dimension, and there are things that we can only speculate and we can only fathom lightly. We could never really wrap our mind around that concept, and so many times, people want to put God in a box, unlabel it, and say God things like this, God things like that. And let me tell you something: the only things we have to go by, really, is the Bible. And even the Bible is a very faint, gives us a very faint picture of the Master. The Bible cannot contain the nature and the character of the Almighty, His goodness, His mercy, His beauty, His power, His wisdom. It cannot contain it. And so we can only get brief glimpses of that eternal one through the words of Messiah, through what is in the Bible. But then again, we can only get just a slight little bird's eye view, just a very, ever so faintly, idea of what He truly is like, because He, like the word says, He is the eternal one, the timeless one. Where there is no time, that's where He inhabits.
Wow, you said that so well, Augusto. Matter of fact, when you were saying that, it was almost like what we can see from our human standing, I guess you could say, or the elements that we're able to operate in, or the dimension. It's almost like we're just simply seeing a black and white photo of the eternal, and the eternal in all reality is full bloom color. but we can't see it like that.
No, we can't. And whenever he reveals himself to us, he's only showing us a facet, a part of him. Okay, like when he told Moses, get over here in this rock. I'm going to hide you. I'm going to pass before you. I'm going to show you my goodness. Okay, he showed him a part of himself. Sometimes the Lord manifests in a meeting, in a place, and he reveals his healing. Sometimes he manifests and he reveals his love. Sometimes he manifests and he reveals his glory and his power. So there are different facets of him, and it is impossible for us to grasp all of these things in just in one thought in our heart. And I guess Larry and Daniel, this is the reason why when people come into the very presence of the Almighty, the tangible, manifest presence of God, they cry, they weep, because what else can they do? They don't know how to what they're experiencing. What words do you put to that? What words can you possibly say that would explain those feelings that people are feeling? We can't even explain love, let alone explain what we feel when we come in contact with the Almighty.
Well, remember what Isaiah said. He said when he saw, the word says that he saw the train of the Lord's robe fill the temple, and there were cherubim flying around, and he saw this magnificent stuff, and he said, "Woe to me, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I come from a people of unclean lips." And, of course, that's when the cherubim put coal to his lips and said, "You're now whole, and your sin is made whole, and you've been forgiven." But when we see God, I've talked to people that, and you've had plenty of experiences, both of you guys, where you've seen or got a glimpse of his presence, and it is overwhelming. You can't do anything but lower your head, not because you're trying to be reverent, because you don't have a choice. His power and his awesomeness is heavy, and he's not from here, Larry. I always say this. He made us, but he ain't from here.
No, it's kind of, even we really can't handle even just a little bit of his presence. It's almost like our physical body fails us. I've seen so many people, especially the old time. Now, I'm not talking about laughing and falling out and all this kind of thing. I'm talking about the real presence of God. And Augusto, you've seen it, and I'm sure you have too, Daniel, the real thing. When the presence of God enters a service, and you don't know sometimes when it's going to happen. It can happen suddenly, and you're not even ready for it, and all of a sudden people get quiet and start, some of them sitting down, some of them falling down, everybody gets weak, shaky. You can't handle the presence of God, and that's just a little smidgen. But I can remember so well some of the times in the old church services that you'd have the presence of God. It just kind of comes in when it wants to, and then it leaves when it wants to. And it's tough on the flesh. And like you said, Daniel, maybe we can nod our head, but we don't even know how we don't know how to even reply to it. We just have to really submit. It's so powerful, and we just have to submit. And a lot of times there's no language. I've had the presence of God enter a service, and I was doing nothing. I was up there talking, but I didn't do it. I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't even know it was going to happen, and the presence enters like that. I just have to shut up. And sometimes you'll have an old saint, and I love these kind of services. You'll have an old saint that never says anything will all of a sudden start to give words from the Lord. And this old saint never says anything, but all of a sudden, when the presence of God comes, everybody gets quiet, and the old saint begins to speak for the Lord. And sometimes you'll have a child, as Augusto's seen many of, that'll have a word or a vision or a prophecy from the Lord or a dream, and boy, it's beyond the flesh. That kind of stuff's hard to digest in the natural.
Sir, you pointed something out to me. I'm sorry, Augusto. You pointed something out to me a while back when we were talking about out of Joel, when it says that the moon will turn to blood and the sun to sackcloth before the great and terrible day of the Lord. And then he says, and I will pour out my spirit on all mankind, on all flesh. Now, we as believers, we always think that deals with us, but that's not what it says. It says all flesh. And Augusto, it makes me think that as we inch closer, although we've been given this reprieve, but as we inch closer to the end of the end, that we are going to be seeing this power of God like we've never seen it before, and it's going to manifest in places that we don't even anticipate.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. I was in Honduras in February this year, and I had never seen what I saw then with the school we were at, a public school. I had been there many times before, and I had never seen anything like what we saw now. I had seen a handful of kids come forth and get saved, and God touched them, and they were shaking and crying and whatever. And I had seen that several times, but what we saw this year, over 100 of those kids came forth to receive prayer, crying and weeping before the Lord. And I'm talking about hardcore. I'm talking about kids that were involved in homosexuality, prostitution, drugs, that kind of thing. They brought those kids, to the class on purpose because they wanted me to minister to them. They wanted them to be ministered, while I was there by the presence of God. And boy, did he come down. And I had never seen anything like this. And then I got an email from other brothers saying the same thing is happening in other parts of Central America, South America, where there is a move of God upon the young people. They're getting saved, and they're coming to the Lord in droves. We are going to see something like that. We have not seen anything like it ever. I have seen, the Lord has shown me homosexuals, lesbians coming to the Lord in this country in mass numbers. And the spirit that fell in those experiences I had on the meetings was a spirit of with the fatherhood of God. The fatherhood of God. And one of the things that these people have never experienced, and I don't throw stones at the homosexuals, or put them down or call them names. No, I preach to them the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I show them mercy and I show them grace. I love them. I don't agree with their sin. Their sin is God doesn't like that sin. God is against homosexuality, the sin of sodomy. But God loves human beings. He really loves human beings. And I felt in those meetings, experiences I had, the fatherhood of God came down, which means that they felt probably for the first time in their whole lives, they felt that God loved them as a father. They never, most homosexuals, and I have studied this because we had 6 homosexuals in our church when we pastored. So I had to do a lot of research and study on this topic. And what I found out was that most homosexual or people experiencing the homosexual lifestyle come from homes where they never experienced the love of a father. Either the father left them, they were fatherless, or maybe the mother was overbearing and dominant, or they were abused by the parents or by someone else. This is the background of homosexual. 9 out of 10. You can mark it down. Now, there may be one rare case, where none of those things apply, and they're still homosexuals. But the majority of the cases, that's what it is. It's the lack of a father, the no fatherhood. And so when the spirit of fatherhood falls on them, they are going to be broken. They're going to be broken because they're going to realize the love that God has for them. Many of these people that are involved in homosexuality, they are looking for love. Okay? They are really looking for love. They have been rejected, they have been abused, and they're really looking for the love of a father. So when that is manifested to them in a real, tangible way, not these churches that tell them, come on in as you are, and they come in and a sinner and go out a sinner, and they don't experience diddly squat. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about them experiencing God for themselves and being in that presence of God where they actually are just impacted and they're changed. And that is the only way that these people can really change. They're not going to change by us telling them, it's a sin, you got to change. They're not going to change because of that. They're going to continue. The only way people that are involved in an addiction, like drugs, alcohol, homosexuality, prostitution, or any such thing, is they have to experience the presence and power and the love of God for themselves. Every one of those people that have experienced that, they have been converted. Look at Nicky Cruz. When he was converted, that was what converted him. It was the love that David Wilkerson showed him. Okay? It was not his preaching. His preaching was good, but it was when he threatened to kill David Wilkerson, and David basically looked at him and said, Nicky, you can cut me up into 100 pieces, and every one of those pieces of my flesh is going to tell you God loves you. That just broke him. And after that, that's when Nicky Cruz converted and went to a service that David Wilkerson had in his church and gave his life to Jesus, and he's a changed man ever since. He came face to face with the spirit of the fatherhood of God and the love of God. And I've seen that with prostitutes. I've seen that with drug addicts, drug pushers. I have seen that with hardcore men in jail. I preach in some jails, and this big, tough men, I've seen them crying like a baby. And so that is the only way that these people are going to get converted, and we're going to see that happen, Daniel, and we're going to see that happen, Larry, Lord willing, before the Lord returns.
Brother, there has never been a truer thing that you have ever said than that. And you're not talking about the wishy-washy, mishy-mouth love that is preached in mega churches these days. You're talking about, and I've never heard it put like this, the spirit of fatherhood, of God's fatherhood. And I never had an issue with homosexuality, and I don't talk about myself. I don't talk where I came from and the things that I came up at. But I had an alcoholic father. Actually, both of my parents were alcoholics. But my father used to beat my mother. And as I was a little kid, I used to have to see that. I saw things that kids shouldn't see. And my father also beat my half-brothers. They were my half-brothers. Well, they were my brothers, but they weren't from the same father. But he didn't touch me because I was his, I suppose. But he ended up, my mother fled for her life. She grabbed us and she fled for her life in the car because she knew that she was going to die if she stayed. And so it was a struggle back then, I remember. And again, I was little. I was 5, 6, something like that, 7 maybe. So it was so she made a life for herself and us, all her kids, and struggled with her own alcoholism. And my father ended up dying when I was 7 or 8. He died an alcoholic and died by himself. And it kind of left a hole in my life, but he wasn't involved. I saw him after my mom left him. I saw him maybe a few times. And then there was she ended up marrying another man who was my stepfather. He was older, and there wasn't any real connection there. And so I grew up without a father, and I can tell you, and I also grew up in the city, folks, and, you know, you may think that Daniel Holdings is a sharp, former business guy, but I grew up on the streets. What you're saying, Augusto, is exactly right, because I saw firsthand how fatherless children would run wild in the streets, and they would do anything. They do drugs, they do sex, they do crime, they do whatever, because they didn't have that father at home. And I can tell you that when I got saved, when Yeshua came into my life, it was in 1983. I was in the service at the time, and I was getting in trouble because I was doing whatever I shouldn't be doing. And he saved me, and I changed overnight. People that I hung with, it was so surprised that all my friends, they got saved, because if they could do it for Daniel, they could do it. If he could do it for Daniel, he could do it for me. But the reason I tell you this story is because what was the one thing, even after I got saved, it was a real conversion. It wasn't just an altar call that I went to. It was a real conversion. There's lots of reasons why I say that. But, and I was filled with the Spirit right off the bat. And when I got saved, though, I still had this hole, and God knew that hole. And I remember I went home I went to my barracks, and I went to take a nap. It was my lunch, and I was allowed. I went down, I took a nap, and I just climbed in my bed. And folks, you're going to think I'm crazy. But then again, I'm an eccentric author, so I'm allowed to be crazy. I was laying there, and I wasn't asleep. I hadn't even went to sleep yet. I just laid down. And Augusto, I heard God's voice. And I don't mean a little voice inside of me. I heard the audible voice of God, and it shook the room. And he said, I love you. And my eyes were closed. I rolled over and said, what? And I looked around. I thought somebody was in the room. Nobody there. I was like, that is weird. I must have been dreaming. I laid back down, and I heard it again. I love you. And I sat back up. And I knew that it was the thing that I needed most. I needed to know the Father's love because I didn't have it. So there is not a truer thing that you said, brother.
Wow. That is good.
In these days, when the world is going crazy and people are feeling alone with no hope and doing whatever they feel like doing whatever makes them feel good, tries to fill that hole, it is the love of God. And I'm not saying that he is righteous and he is angry. Let me just tell you that right now. The way things are going, he is not happy. But for us as individuals, he is our Father. And he loves us and he beckons us like the prodigal son to come home to him.
Amen.
And we are going to see his love pour out like never before. Real love, not just this plastic mega church, he loves me, I can do whatever I want. No, the real love of God brings with it conviction. This is my Father, and I want to please him. So I'm going to please him by walking with him. I'm going to do his word. I'm going to do what he tells me to do. I'm going to talk to him in a relationship. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about some, loosey-goosey, feel-good, message here. The real love of God, as you know, Augusto, it'll change your life forever.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that, Daniel. That was personal, and I do appreciate it. Listen, guys, we're going to listen to a song and just take a moment break, and then we'll be right back, folks. And I want to thank Daniel especially for sending me this song. This is a song I believe is called The Watchman, and Dorothy's got it ready. Let's go ahead and go into our short break, and kind of interesting song. Well, we are back, and I do want to thank Daniel Holdings and Augusto Perez for the roundtable hour that we had previous to this. It was really, I'll just have to say it was packed. It was jam-packed with information, and I thank both of you guys for coming on today and talking about this. We got another hour now. Let me bring up something different here. I saw in the chat room earlier somebody was inquiring what did we think, or did any of us know what was CERN doing, or what was the connection with CERN with some of these end-time events. Daniel, you want to take that first since you wrote so much about CERN? Of course, you connected it to Hart, too, but you want to take that question, and then we'll ask Augusto where he wants to go with it.
Well, Larry, this is part of what part of the inspiration for the book that I kind of working on, not working real hard on at the moment. Mad Scientists and Other Wackadoos, because there's a lead physicist that proposed. Now get this: there is a lead physicist that proposed this very experiment that they're trying to do right now. And he proposed it a few years ago. Him and another gentleman. He was working at the Large Hadron Collider, and they proposed something that was so wild, so expensive. You know how it is. Augusto, I don't know if you ever bought a used car, but you go to a used car and they always ask you for the highest price, right? And then they work it all down. They call out their manager, and then the manager comes and he'll lower the price because he's a good guy, and you dicker back and forth with him until you finally settle on a price. That's kind of like what these guys did when they proposed this current experiment to them. And their thought was they will never, ever do this because it's far too expensive and far too dangerous. Well, lo and behold, they came up with the money to double the power of the LHC and to run the experiment just as they proposed. And that same very physicist says, these people are crazy. He's not at the LHC anymore. He says, these people are crazy. They don't know, and this is his words, not mine. I'm not going to say it, but they don't know what the blankety blank they're doing. Those are his words. And, in fact, that article is on my website if you all want to go there. But the point is that what they are attempting to do is just mad scientist stuff just because they can. They are looking for parallel universes. Those are not my words. Those are their words. Again, an article on my website you can go to that's up there. They are looking to pierce the veil, Augusto, to literally pierce the veil. And the funny thing is, I saw a video. I forgot the gentleman's name, but Larry, I'm not making this stuff up. This is like too crazy even for Daniel Holdings' novel.
Okay.
He looked at the magnetosphere when, because you can go on to NASA's website and you can look at the magnetosphere, and when there's a solar storm, you can see it buffeting the magnetosphere and stuff. There was no solar storm that was taking place at this time, but he correlates this last round of power-ups by the LHC to the magnetosphere being battered like crazy. I mean, you could see it bending and moving like something was pushing against it. And the funny thing is, one of the things that I say in my book, Larry, is that data goes all over the world to various stations all over the world for the world to get the information from the LHC, and that is true. That really does happen. But what he does in his videos, he shows where it looks like they weren't telling the whole story, that they held back data in order to appease people. But he thinks, according to this guy, it's not my words, it's his words, he thinks that they ramped it up to almost 10 TeV. Now, for those of you that don't know what a TeV is, it stands for trillion electron volts. It has to do with the speed that a particle is being moved. So the other crazy thing is, in my books, what I did is I said that I don't know how this stuff, well, I do know how it happens, it's the Lord, but in my books I said that they ramped up the speed of the LHC to twice its power, to 10 TeV or better, because, Larry, it was such a crazy idea. I write fiction, right? They would never do a thing like that. And lo and behold, Augusto, they are doing it right now, and I believe that they are literally trying to tear down the veil between the seen and the unseen, between what they think are parallel dimensions. We would call it hell, right? And these entities who they would call, I don't know, they would call them interdimensional aliens. We would call them demons. But they don't even know what they're playing with, Larry. They're playing with fire, and they don't even understand it. And in fact, I was talking about you on my last show that I was guest on a show a couple of days ago, and I was talking about that article that you sent me from Klaus Donut, that Klaus Donut sent you when they first cranked up the LHC and they actually saw an interdimensional being on the screen and it shut down their system. So if it was bad then, can you imagine what it's going to be like when they go to full power?
Wow. Wow, that's true. That's true, Daniel. That wasn't Dutch Sense, was it? I know he does a lot of monitoring of a lot of that type of stuff, HARP and CERN and et cetera.
No, it wasn't Dutch Sense, and I don't know the gentleman's name. I honestly, I don't have time to keep up with stuff like I used to, but you would know him. In fact, he reminds me of you. He talks with kind of like your accent. He kind of sounds like you, as a matter of fact. Are you sure it wasn't you?
Maybe me in another life. I don't know.
Well, it's on my website. If you go there, I'm sure you'll find it. It's probably on the front page. I put it up this week because I believe LA and I were talking about the LHC, so it's up there within the first few headlines that you would read there.
For everybody that hasn't gone to Daniel's website lately, I'd encourage you to do so. It's danielholdings.com. He's really done a really terrific job of revamping or redoing his website, and it's a lot easier to maneuver. It's a lot easier to read, and it's crammed full of good stuff, or as Dorothy says, data. A lot of good data there. Augusto, what's your feelings on CERN and where some of this is going?
Well, yeah, CERN is definitely, trying to mess with the veil, and they're trying to rip it. They're trying to, so many of these instruments and lasers that are being developed now, they have the ability to open a gash on the veil, on the space-time continuum. And I'm no expert on this field, but from what I've read, I really have the feeling that they're messing with things that they cannot control beyond their control. I truly feel like they're using technology way above their head, and they're using this technical information and technical data that they're receiving from the other side. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things that they're doing with this CERN is they're reaching into the other side and receiving information from the other side from these entities. And I know that there's entities here now working with them. I know that they got the dumb bases on the ground and they're there, and I know that. But there are entities on the other side that have not made it to this side yet, which are very dangerous. The Bible says that the Lord put those angels in chains of darkness. He bound them in chains of darkness. The reason that the Lord put those entities in chains of darkness and chained them was because they refused to play by the rules. They were very rebellious, and they rebelled against the Most High. They would not follow the divine laws, and so God, the Almighty had to put them in chains. And so that's where they are. They're on the other side. Now, what those chains are, we don't know. The Bible says chains of darkness. Whether they're little chains or not, or they're just a place where they are restrained to a place, we don't know. We can only speculate. However, from what I'm hearing from this CERN, these entities, being in the bottomless pit, and of course, when we had the radio show, Larry, with Stan Deyo, I asked him the question, and he kind of answered it, but kind of quickly, fast, and he didn't get deeply into it, which was basically, the relation between the bottomless pit and this other dimension. Where is the bottomless pit, and is it under the earth? Is it in another dimension? And whether CERN had what was that what CERN was trying to do? And I believe he answered that yes, they were connected. And he didn't go deep into it, but he did say that yes, they were connected. And so from that I gather that they're trying to open up the bottomless pit. They're really trying to release these fallen angels, these rebel angels that were very powerful and very, very knowledgeable. And they were the ones, many of them, that taught mankind how to use different things, how to make fire, how to make certain weapons. They taught women how to do abortions, and many of these things. They taught mankind, many of the occult practices, how to heal with herbs and so forth, and so on, and many of these things. That's where they come from. Cannibalism and homosexuality and all these things come from the fallen angels and the Nephilims messing up and giving all this information and passing this information to mankind. And so many of these entities are on the other side. They're bound, and these are the very ones that they're trying to contact. And so I don't know where this thing is leading, but it's not leading them to a very good place. And they're going to ramp this thing up. I believe they already are at a much higher level than they were last time when they were, doing CERN. I also read that in the month of May, they may have bumped that, changed that date, but it was going to be the month of May. They were going to ramp it up again, and then in September, they were going to really ramp it up to a very high level, which could have repercussions in the universe. And this is what Stephen Hawking is concerned about. And he expressed his concerns about this, and he told him, he says, don't do this. This could jeopardize our universe. And because we're talking about the Higgs field, we're talking about antimatter, we're talking about very, very strange stuff that no one has ever messed with. And everything in this universe is made up of dark matter, antimatter. And, this is the glue that holds everything together. And that is exactly what they're trying to find out. And they're trying to play God. They're trying to become God and, and find this, this substance that holds the glue that holds everything together. And, this could destroy everything we know. This could destroy the veil. This could allow these entities to come into our realm, our reality, unhindered. This could mess up our solar shield, our magnetosphere. This could do a lot of things which would allow all these meteors and asteroids to start bombarding the Earth without any protection, because our magnetosphere is what protects us. So if they mess that up, even slightly, we're going to see a lot of these other meteors and asteroids and solar flares that are we're protected from because of the magnetosphere. Right now, if that goes, Larry and Daniel, we are going to see people really being burned by the sun rays. We're going to see the asphalt melting under our feet. We're going to see temperatures hit 150 degrees Fahrenheit easy. The Antarctic ice sheet on the perimeters of it is melting. We are seeing it reach temperatures of 67 degrees Fahrenheit. It is warmer in parts of Antarctica now than it is in in some parts of our country. Things are happening that people don't know that are going on. Dangerous things are taking place, and I'm just saying that people need to really start getting right with the Lord and getting close to Jesus, and making sure that they're saved and living pure lives, because this thing we are literally entering into the end times. We are already in the end times. We are entering into great tribulation. And so we have never seen any of these things. Never. You mentioned, Larry, before the program about the black-eyed woman now appearing. What is that all about? I didn't even know about that.
Okay, let me drop this on you and Daniel real quick, or I'll forget it. You brought up Standeo, and matter of fact, that item ought to be at your post office now. From the lectures of Standeo, he's got a section there you need to watch called talking about Solomon, and he talks in there about Solomon having an unsavory side also, and talks about the Queen of Sheba. And Daniel, get this, and Augusto, Stan says that when he researched this and looked into the spelling, that the Queen of Sheba, the B is actually supposed to be a V.
Shiva.
What does that say? That says Shiva.
Wow. And
Wow.
Larry, I hadn't heard that. And that, it's rare these days that I hear something that blows my mind, but that makes sense. And, here's the thing. The reason that the Southern Kingdom got carried away was because the word says that that Solomon didn't get rid of the high places, and he dabbled in stuff that he shouldn't have been dabbling in, and that's why the kingdom was split. That's why Israel was split because of him, because of the influence that he fell under. Now, before I go there, Augusto, when you said that Stephen Hawking has warned against this, we need to understand the weight of his warning, because it was also Stephen Hawking when I did research for 3 Days in the Belly of the Beast, and I looked into Stephen Hawking and what he was thinking about the Large Hadron Collider. Back then, at the power levels that they were running, he said, it's no big deal. Even if there are little black holes created, they'll go away. They'll just dissolve. Nothing's going to happen. So he wasn't concerned with the LHC experiment at all. He wasn't concerned at all. Now, with what they are doing now, and I just told you what even other physicists are saying about how these people are crazy, Stephen Hawking is very, very concerned about what they're doing and the road that they are going down, because you're absolutely right. They don't know what they're doing, and I think, I agree with you, I think that they are getting information, getting data from sources that are not of this world, and they happen to think it's extra dimensional beings that are giving them a hand. Yeah, they're giving them a hand, but they're giving them a hand to break out of jail. And I'll just leave it at that. And you can read my first book if you want to find out what I'm talking about. But that said, Larry, do you remember the beginning of Between the Veil and that whole discourse about Nimrod and, what was going on with Nimrod in the prologue of the book? I mentioned Nimrod. I got some of that information direct from Stan Dale. And different things that he had said over the years, and how they were trying to open up a portal. They were trying to open up a gate in order to be like the Most High, right? They wanted to, and in fact it says they wanted to kill him, but they wanted, and you know what? It's the same, guys. It is the same song and dance. We like to think in the 21st century that we are so advanced. I just read today where they are, the Chinese scientists have come out in the news and declared that they have modified the DNA in embryos. So they're playing with the seeds of life. And we like to play God. We like to do this. That is no different than Nimrod. That is no different than what they were doing back then when God caused the great flood. Yeshua said in Matthew 24 that it would be as in the days of Noah. It is, folks, in case you weren't paying attention, as in the days of Noah.
Well, that's right. But I wanted to drop that on you guys about what Stan Dale has in his lectures, and he's found that should be a V instead of a B. In other words, Shiva, Shiva, Queen of Sheba. And we find so much, Augusto. We find so much of data now. Is actually there's ancient technology that was really better than what the technology we've already developed today is not as good as some of the ancient stuff.
Well, these entities have forbidden knowledge. The Bible calls it forbidden knowledge. And the reason it was forbidden by the Almighty was for that reason. This knowledge could lead to the destruction of this world, of the fabric of time, of the universe. And, people, the Almighty, in the first hour we talked about the Father. Many of us are fathers, we are parents, and we have children, okay? And when they're growing up, we tell them, don't do this. It's dangerous, okay? Stay away from it. Now, the kids, our children, okay, we love them, but they think that we just want to keep them away from having fun. We just don't want them to get their hands on things and have fun. And so that's what they think. And so they are tempted. The minute you tell somebody, don't do that, it's dangerous, that is the green light for them to go and try it out because it must be fun. And so this is the same way with humanity. Our Creator, our Heavenly Father, said many times to mankind, don't do certain things. Don't do this. Stay away from this. But mankind is very rebellious, and so they want to try things out that the Almighty told us to stay away from. And many of these things that He told us to stay away from it has to do with contact with these fallen entities. These fallen entities, remember, in the Old Testament, He tells us, He tells the people to stay away from sorcerers, from occultists, from palm readers, from spiritists, and the such. And, to stay away from those practices. And the reason He tells people to stay away from those practices is because it opens doors. It opens doorways, it opens portals into their lives and into this world. And these entities, they don't love humankind. They hate humankind. They know that they're going to be destroyed. They know their destiny, okay? They're going to be thrown into the lake of fire. And so they know that, but they don't want to, they want to save themselves. And the way they're trying to do that is by getting mankind, getting the earth, okay, behind them. And so maybe they say, maybe if the whole earth, maybe if mankind, joins our view, and they join our rally, and they get on our side, maybe the Lord will spare us too. I don't know what is on their feeble, corrupted, evil minds, but these people are twisted. They're very twisted. Demons are twisted. Many of these people in the occult, I have prayed for many of them. They have been set free, and they have told me things. They really, some of these people really think that they can win. Some of them really think that they can win this thing, and so all of these things going on with CERN and with time and space and all these weapons, I have a suspicion, and I'm going to share this tonight. I haven't spoken about this before, but I have a suspicion that this CERN instrument, which is very powerful and it's very beautiful looking, it's got so many colors and very beautiful to look at. But this CERN, I think it is also a weapon, and I don't know exactly what it can do yet, but I think it is a weapon of terrible destruction. And that's just a feeling I have. I have no way to prove it. I have no data to back up what I'm saying. I'm just getting that feeling in the spirit that it is some kind of weapon that they are coming up with. And somehow they're going to use this weapon against the Almighty as well. And if not against the Almighty, against this world, to destroy the world. And so I have very, very bad vibes about CERN, the colliders. And they're going to ramp this thing up to maximum power in September right around September 24th. And that is the time, by the way, that the French foreign minister last year in the month of May said, right with John Kerry, the Secretary of State, he made a declaration, and when he said this, John Kerry, if you guys can watch it, the video on YouTube, when he says that, John Kerry looks at him like, you better don't spill the beans, that kind of look. And the French Prime Minister, Foreign Minister said, we have 500 days until climate chaos. And that happens to fall as well on September 24th. Of course, September 23rd is the end of the year, the Shemitah. I mean, so many things happen simultaneously. The blood moon happening a few days after that. I mean, we are going to see some interesting things in the next few months.
I think you're exactly right. And Augusto, I didn't forget your question. You asked me, L.A. Marzulli and Richard Shaw came out on one of their DVDs with this black-eyed kids concept that was beginning to happen really all over the country. And there has been reports from around the world of these, what appears to be children that are black-eyed, solid black eyes that are appearing in the night and appearing on people's porches and then vanishing and et cetera, et cetera. But recently, the first time I'd heard of this, I was reading a report comes out on the Internet, and it talks about, and matter of fact, when you brought up, you said you'd just been on a radio show out of Pennsylvania. This report, I just found it this morning, MUFON, which is actually a reporter of UFO activity. I mean, that's what MUFON usually does, but this is actually a MUFON report on black-eyed women that are being seen in a location around Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And the MUFON investigation was dated 8/15 of 2014, and they're having reports of black-eyed women. And we know, Augusto, a lot of this stuff, a lot of these things didn't really start to happen and being reported, entities appearing, and there were isolated instances, but since CERN has been in operation and such, and they've been tearing at these veils, so to speak, we're having some really bizarre visuals of animal life and even prehistoric animal life, some of it popping in and then being gone, and black-eyed kids, black-eyed women now, and we're seeing some really, really strange stuff being reported, and not only reported just for a magazine, but MUFON's even looking into it, which I find is somewhat telling.
Well, Larry, now that you mention it, we started the show. We mentioned I mentioned that I was listening to that roundtable that you and I and Augusto and Stan Dale did on Kurt and Kurt, and it was before 2012. And do you remember that L.A. Marzulli, and I think it was L.A., and his team were supposed to go down to Quetzalcoatl, to the pyramid down there, and I think it's Quetzalcoatl. And Augusto, you probably said better than me, correct me if I'm wrong. But the Lord gave him a check in his spirit, and he ended up not going, but he had somebody on the ground that was reporting from there. And do you remember the sense of evil that they were feeling on that date? So we didn't see anything happen in the natural. We didn't see, the world didn't end, and you or I or Augusto weren't saying that it was going to end. But something happened in the spiritual. And at the same time, CERN was running their experiments back then. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do. Augusto, where was that? They had that meeting. I can't remember the name of the place. It's Mexico, wasn't it?
Chichen Itza.
Chichen Itza, that's right.
Yeah, that's where he was going to. He was going to Chichen Itza, which is a place right off Mérida, which is a city that I was there. I was there years ago, in the late 90s. We had a crusade there in Mérida, and it really was not a very good feeling. That whole area, by the way, the whole Yucatan Peninsula is considered the if you will, where the snake hides, and that word actually Quetzalcoatl. There's a city in Mexico called Quetzalcoatl, and that means in the ancient Maya tongue means where the snake hides. And so, I mean, the whole nation of Mexico, especially that area of the Yucatan, and then going south through Central America, that's the lair of the snake. Okay, that is the lair of the snake. And in Chichen Itza, in a certain part of the year, you go there and you can actually see when the sun sets the shadow of the sun, and it looks like the snake making its way down, slithering its way down the side of the pyramid. And it is a very evil place. And I was very surprised when I heard that Marzulli was going to go there, and with a few others. And I didn't say anything, but I said, "Man, they're making a big mistake. You don't go into the lair of the snake on such a date." And so that thankfully the Lord told them not to go. I really felt like their lives would be endangered, and so we have to be very, very careful about this thing. This is nothing to play with. These things are real. I saw in Miami, Florida, a young girl, spirit-filled. She was a Christian girl, spirit-filled, and she thought she could go into the lair of a brujo there. There's a lot of them in Miami, Florida, and she thought she could just go in there and witness to him about Jesus Christ. So she went with a good spirit, trying to help the guy, and tell him about Jesus. And the guy disappeared behind some curtains, and he came back out with a cigar lit and smoking it, and then he took a big, whiff of the cigar, and he blew it in her face, and he spoke some gibberish. And that girl was demonized from that point on, and we had to cast the devil out of her, after that, and it was not a pretty sight. Beautiful girl, her face was disfigured like a grotesquely, and she was shaking, and it was a mess. She was a mess, and the parents took her to the doctor. The doctor told her, or told the parents, she's lost her mind. We can't do anything for her. I gave her some pills. Take these pills and keep her sedated. And so anyway, it took the power of God to set her free. And, it's very dangerous to go into some of these areas, especially without any strong prayer cover, without a solid, powerful group of intercessors praying for you. And even at that, you have to have the Lord tell you, go. Otherwise, people do that kind of stuff. They're playing with fire. And so I was glad that the Lord warned them. And I believe Russ Disdar was going to, and there was another brother from Florida, I can't remember his name also, that I had on my program.
There was, Augusto, you had called me because he mentioned somebody named Larry was going. And you had called me, and I said, "Oh no, that's not me. That's not this Larry. I'm not going."
I heard Larry was going to say. I said, "Larry, are you going? Are you going there?"
No. But I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what though. As you were saying, Daniel, and Augusto, L.A. did say he got a call from down there when this was going on, and the guy said people were screaming. And he was really upset. It was not it was not a good deal. It was really a bad situation. And like you said, Augusto, a lot of time demon possession happens right at that moment, and people are not prepared. They're not anointed for any kind of work like that, and it's very, very dangerous.
Well, we were entering a time when I think you said it, Augusto, that the Lord is saying, okay, give us your best shot. And so the devil knows that his time is short, and that energy, and I don't mean it like that, sounds like a New Age thing, but that energy is ramping up, that evilness, that darkness, if I can say it like that, is ramping up for the end of the age. And you see this since that time, that's why I mentioned that, since that time in 2012 when CERN was doing their experiments, and And I think we're going to see, and Augusto, you were so right about September, we're going to see a culmination of those things coming down then. Now, you also said something else earlier, Augusto, that I wanted to comment on, but I don't want to break your train of thought. You were talking about the chemtrails that you saw around the sun, and you were talking about how you expected to see Nibiru, Planet X, whatever it was, sometime in the future. You didn't know when, but you said sometime in the future. And, I've heard it said many times that the chemtrails that we are seeing are acting as kind of a screen, as a disguise for Nibiru, for Planet X, that the powers that be are trying to hide what we should see in the sky now. And the funny thing is, I mentioned I had Gil Broussard on. Gil Broussard is the gentleman I talked to you about that has this Planet 7X theory. And he talks about, it's interesting because you were talking about meters, if the magnetosphere fails or begins to fail, we'll see meteors and that kind of thing. Interestingly enough, Larry, that's the kind of thing that actually happened in the Bible, in the Old Testament. And this guy says that we are going to see it again. Now, could it be? I don't know. I mean, I have no evidence to back this up. I'm just talking off the top of my head, audience. I'm not saying it's true or not. But could it be that CERN is purposely doing this, A, that they are trying to rip the veil between the other dimensions, or the demonic realm, if you will, and also tear down our own physical protection for this incoming object? I don't know, Augusto, but if I were to write a book, I couldn't write it that good.
Yeah, I know. It makes a wonderful movie, if they did it. But there's something here that we still don't understand. There are some dots that still are to be connected, and I got some things in my mind, in my spirit, that I haven't been able to reconcile yet. Of course, I had on our program a few months back another brother that wrote a book called Planet X, the Sign of the Son of Man. And, I thought he shared a lot of interesting things. I had never heard anyone connect Planet X to the sign of the Son of Man. And so someone recommended it to me, and a couple of years ago, and actually sent me the book to read, a sister. And I read it, and I haven't read it thoroughly from cover to cover, but I've read I would say about 60-70% of it, and he makes a tremendous point of saying that Planet X is really connected to the sign of the Son of Man. How the Lord, throughout the scriptures, there is a star. I will give you the morning star, and many great points he made about that this object has been used in the past as God's hammer to to bring judgment on the earth and to bring the earth back into alignment. And even he used Planet X in the creation of the earth. It's incredible. I recommend people just read it. It's got some things in there that I don't agree with, but overall, it's a good read. Eat the meat and spit out the bones. If you're mature in Christ, you know what that means. But he's got a lot of good things in there, and we are yet to see, Daniel and Larry, what really is this all about. And I do believe that there's some connection with this object, with Planet X and the sign of the Son of Man. I know there's a connection between this object and this coming Anunnaki, the sons of Anak, the Nephilims. I don't know how that is all connected, but I know it is. And I am yet to find anyone that has been able to put it all in order. And I don't got it yet. I am trying to do more research. I'm praying about it, but there is a lot there that we still don't understand. And I believe the Lord is involved in it. I believe that there are some things here that have to do with the Lord Jesus Christ, with his return. And I do believe it also has to do with the return of the Anunnaki. And all of these things are in together. And, for example, just to throw something out there for, food for thought, the last time this object passed, we saw both an explosion of the Anunnaki, of the giants. Okay, remember that the Lord, took his people to the promised land, and the giants were already there. They were already on the promised land, the sons of Anak and the Nephilims and the valley of the giants and all these things that it took David and his mighty men of valor to slay them all, to kill them all, and still, they probably didn't get them all. They got the most famous ones. But these things, remember, it happened right around the time when this object last passed close to Earth. And also, the thing that happened was there was a very powerful manifestation of God. That's when the Lord met with Moses on Mount Sinai. And remember, the great darkness came upon Mount Sinai, and smoke, and the ground shook, and the people were terrified. And that gross darkness descended upon the land of Egypt. So all these things are tied together, and I don't got it all. I don't have it all, cleared yet. I haven't connected all the dots yet. But I'm praying, and I'm beginning to see some of these things, how they are connected. And I'm telling you, it's going to be quite an exciting time. We are going to see some incredible things manifesting, and this is the time that the prophets of old, the apostles of old, talked about. We are living in. We have been chosen for this time to see these things. What a great honor! What a privilege to be alive.
Larry, as Augusto was talking, two things come to mind, and I know we're running short on time, but I can't help but remember what Ed Dames said about the kill shot call. He says that armies go out to the battlefield and they're fighting, and then they stop and they all look up. And whatever, remember, this is what his people, and I'm not advocating the kind of things that Ed Dames does. I'm just telling what he said. They stop, and something shakes them so bad, Augusto, that they all go home after that, right? And then
I remember that.
Yeah. The other thing that strikes me is that when this thing happens, it says that heaven and earth will pass away, that there'll be a new heaven and earth. But this passing of whatever this is so severe that it will destroy our planet, I think.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because that goes along with what I do believe, that in the end times that God will pour out his Spirit on all flesh, and that would include, I think, Ed Dames. And so, therefore, I have to simply say that it is possible God could show Ed Dames this end-time event. But what you said is true. What Ed Dames said was that these the armies go out to battle. They're all in one place about to have a great battle, and for some reason something happens, and they all look up, and he said all the armies go home, And I think it has to do with the object in, close in cosmically with the planet, with Earth. And then of course he warns about the sun and other things too. But I'll tell you what, we're definitely in a very, very interesting time, as Augusto says.
Yeah, and I just thank the Lord that he has allowed me to be alive to see it. I've always asked him, Lord, I want to see your second coming. And I think we're going to get that opportunity, Larry and Daniel. And if the Lord doesn't take us home before, I think we'll get that chance. And it's going to be glorious. The visions that people have seen of this event, and little children have seen it Young people have seen it. Older people have seen it. Prophets of old have seen it. It's going to be quite a show, and I mean, it's going to be terrible for those that don't know him, and it's going to be glorious for those that know. And that's the reason why it's called the Great and Terrible Day of the Lord. It's great for those of us that know him and are waiting and ready, but terrible for those that do not know him.
Amen. Augusto, if you would, give out the way people can contact you and view your material.
Oh, thank you, Larry. Our website is theappearance.com, and we have our radio shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays right here on Blog Talk Radio, on Dorothy's Blog Talk Radio, the portal. And Tuesday nights is the mailbag. We do with Larry Taylor, and on Thursday nights we do our teaching series, and sometimes we do interviews. So, love to see you visit us.
And Daniel, if you would, give out ways that people can contact you and also view your material and hear your shows.
Thank you, Larry. My website is danielholdings.com, danielholdings.com. You can listen to the podcast there, or you can listen to it live on HebrewNationOnline.com, and that's on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific. And I don't say this often, but I do have a presence on Facebook for the time being, and if you want to visit me there and friend me, I'll friend you back.
We appreciate that. And listen, guys, I appreciate both of you. This has been a really, just packed show, and we're going to have to do this again. And I want to leave this with people. Franklin Graham today said, "Is the world no longer shocked by Christians having their heads cut off?" He's really concerned that it appears the whole world is beginning to not be shocked anymore because of the death of Christians. And that's another topic. That's another subject that we can talk about some other time. But that just came out today on April the 22nd. And I thank everybody that has came on and listened to us. We've got about, looks like 18 seconds. So this is Larry Taylor signing off, and I'll try to have another show in the very near future. God bless you all. Thank you, guys, for coming on, and shalom.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Augusto.
Shalom, shalom.
Goodbye.